All right, so just for the recording here, we are gonna, for this example today, we're downloading scannerstuff.zip, and we're getting that file extracted. So we're working with the CueCat Scanner. Kind of interesting to record this one because unless you have a CueCat, this recording is not going to do a whole lot for you. But I guess we'll do it anyway. To be able to have a successful scan, I'm just going to open up Notepad. The first thing is that this scanner, there are broadly two kinds of barcode scanners from an interface perspective. One is what's referred to as a keyboard wedge. That's what this is. Your computer sees this device as a keyboard. You ever plugged the USB keyboard into your computer and used it? Yeah, it's the same thing. This is just a very strange looking keyboard. In fact, on the inside of this, there's an itty bitty tiny little cat with a little keyboard, and he just reads the barcode and he types on it. That's how this thing works. That's what's going on. And so your computer really does see this as a keyboard. So that's one type. The other type, I don't know what they call it. It's a non-keyboard wedge. There's probably some other name for it. But that requires a special driver. So the nice thing about a keyboard wedge is that, you know what, you plug it in and it's a keyboard. Wherever the input's going to go, the barcode scanner just takes it in as if it had been typed in. If you've got a more, if you have the other kind of scanner, you've got to have a driver and install the driver to be able to make it work, just like any other peripheral, like a printer or a scanner or something. You would need to have a driver for it. And so, if you've got a keyboard wedge, you're ready to go. All right, so let's talk about this one in particular. So this was made in the late 90s by a company called Digital Convergence. Let's talk about them for a minute. So Digital Convergence had a really interesting idea. I was going to give you some help on how to scan. So here's the secret to scanning, folks. You'll notice that every once in a while the cat is like half asleep. I mean, every once in a while he kind of opens an eye to see is there anything going on out there. And as long as the cat's in that mode, he's not really paying attention to what's happening. You'll notice that when you put the two little front paws of the cat right close against something, that light will come on and stay on. And so that's where the cat goes, oh, there's something to see. So you want to get yourself right next to the barcode, and then you want to scan across kind of quickly, not too fast. You don't want to go slow. You want to go quickly, and you want it to be in an even motion. If you go like really slow across like this, it's going to have no idea what's going on. But kind of a quick scan across. Up close and personal, get the little cat paws running right against the barcode. Don't hold it up in the air and try to do it like this. You got to get right down against it and scan across. And kind of once you get the hang of it, you can do it, repeatedly. But it's up close and personal. You're going to run those paws right along the code. So what happens? What if you go sideways? Does it work sideways? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does. Whatever. And you can read the barcodes front or back. It doesn't matter. They all come out the same way. Okay, so Digital Convergence. Just based on the name, what do you think the company's going to do? The name of the company is Digital Convergence. Well, it's probably going to converge something. It's the late 90s. What's the mid-90s? Mid to late 90s. And, the internet is becoming really interesting to people. The digital and the real world. And this was their thought. Their thought was, hey, you know what? While you're eating that can of Pringles, we think you might want to know more about that can of Pringles. And so you just take out your scanner, which is right next to your computer where you eat your Pringles, and scan the barcode. When you scan the barcode, we will automatically bring up a web page that shows you more information about the product you are eating. And maybe we'll show you some advertisements for a competing product that you might be interested in, also trying. And so that was one thing. Anything with a barcode on it, they said, we want you to scan it. They also said this, you know what? Anytime you're reading an article in a magazine, we want you to be able to scan the barcode next to the article and get more information about that article. Have you ever seen an article with a barcode next to it? If the answer is no, it's because you've never read Forbes magazine in the late 1990s. So Digital Convergence actually got Forbes magazine to put a little barcode next to every one of their articles. Yeah. Like a QR code. QR code is what won. You're going to find out what happened to Digital Convergence. You've never heard of them? They're gone. They're long gone. Their idea, it was a great idea that was just a little bit ahead of its time. And the problem was, you had to have one of these. So where are you going to get one of these? Any idea? What would you do? Call up Digital Convergence and buy one online or whatever. Any thoughts? For this to work, Digital Convergence has to get these in the hands of everybody, doesn't it? They really do. And so it turns out for a time during the late 1990s, you could walk into any Radio Shack and say, I want a CueCat. They would reach under the counter and they would give you one. You didn't sign anything. You just walked in and said, I want a CueCat. They're all great. Here's a CueCat. They wanted to get these into the hands of everybody. And a lot of people got them. So put yourself, kind of in that mindset. You are giving these things away. Why would you do that? What could possibly be there? They were a for-profit company. They're trying to make money at this stuff. How much do you think it costs to make one of these? It's a few dollars probably. It's probably something less than $10 in quantity. Maybe they could get it down to $3 or $4. But still, you're giving them away like they're free. Well, they are free. They're giving them away. So how are you going to make money? Okay, so one thing would be advertising. In fact, that's probably the big thing, right? You scan this, and all of a sudden I'm going to put up some ads on that page that you're going to see. That would be super. But, is that it? Let me tell you what they were trying. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so it turns out, this is happening about the same time that Google is being founded. So there is no real king of the hill in terms of digital search at this point. Could it have been Digital Convergence? Probably not, but they were in that space. But here's what they did. How useful is this scanner? Look what it scans. Incidentally, when you have a normal barcode scanner that's not shaped like a cat and you scan it and you're looking at Notepad, what does it show you? Any idea? Show you something encoded like this? No, it just shows you the number of the barcode. And so they've done something here to make it, not actually scan out the barcode that you read. And their whole idea is we've got to, have this encrypted so that, we can't have one of our competitors come along and piggyback off of our investment in hardware to provide a different service. So that was it. So in order for this scanner to be useful to you, you had to download, well, it probably came with a CD now that I think of it, but you had to install the software that would work with this scanner, that would decode that and send the message off to the server and bring you back the information. And part of the registration process for that was you provided all kinds of interesting information that would be interesting to marketers. Your age, your gender, your birth date. I've never installed the software, but you probably asked different things you liked. What do you like to do? What are your hobbies? I don't know what they asked. Probably all this kinds of stuff. And what they were really trying to do is they were trying to build these ultra-precise marketing profiles about you. So they want to know every time you scan something, we're going to record that you just scanned that. You just scanned a can of Pringles. We're going to remember that. Today, are we uncomfortable with this idea? Are we uncomfortable with the idea that somewhere Google has kept track of everything I've ever Googled? If we are, we're not too uncomfortable with it because, we just kind of use Google. How many of you actually log into Chrome? So that wherever you go, you're logged into Chrome and it knows your whole history and everything. Yeah. That's why they have you log into Chrome, is so wherever you go, we can know what you're searching for. So but in the late 90s, people looked at that and they went, oh, we're pretty uncomfortable with that. And so there was kind of resistance to this idea. Plus, you had to be by your computer, and how many of you actually walk to your computer when you're eating that can of Pringles, just so you can scan it? So it was a pretty good idea. It was really ahead of its time. So today, what has made this work? Yeah, the fact is everyone carries around a barcode scanner in their pocket. They have it with them all the time. Not everybody, but almost everybody. And so, yeah, this works. Digital Convergence didn't do it, but, it came around later when the technology caught up to the idea. So let's suppose that you are an electrical engineering student. What do you see when you get this? First of all, it's free. You're a student, and so you like the price. But if you're an electrical engineering student, what do you see when you look at what's the first this? I'll tell you, it's on the bottom. There are two of them. What do you notice? There are screws. And you immediately take this thing apart and you look at it. It's free hardware. And you're probably wondering, I wonder what makes this thing tick. First of all, an interesting thing is that for this, is this barcode encrypted? No, there's nothing encrypted about this. And so to be able to get that thing encrypted, it has to read this first. Then it has to encrypt it. And so if you're a hardware guy, you look at this and you open it up and you wonder, I wonder how I could turn this into a normal scanner. And it turns out there are like 3 or 4 different versions of this, and so the inside looks different depending on which version it is. I don't know if it says the version on the outside. You might have to open it up and take a look at it to see which one it is. But it turns out that there's a place that you can just take an X-Acto knife and you can just cut a certain part on this, and it will turn it into an ordinary barcode scanner. It's like disable the part that does the encrypting. And of course, as soon as a student figured that out, was probably a student who figured it out, he publishes it on the web page and on a web page somewhere, and pretty soon everyone knows how to turn their CueCat into a normal old scanner. In fact, what would you call it if there was some operation that you would do to a cat? You would open it up and cut something, and it would somehow now be less of a cat. Yeah, or neuter, yeah, that's what they call it. They call it neutering. So if you actually Google CueCat neuter, you're going to see how to do that. I mean, there's still lots of places. There were millions of these things out there. Oh, here's the other one. So the other thing that was interesting is that, okay, before we talk about that one, so I've got a few scans up here, and I've scanned a few different items. So tell me, just looking at this output, what do you notice? What's interesting about it? Okay, something about patterns. I'm going to scan a few different one of these, so we have a few different scans to have up there. Okay, what are you noticing? Tell me. So you're looking at this and say something interesting about it. You might want to compare what yours is doing compared to mine, Amber. Okay, so we have a dot, and then we have another dot, and then this part doesn't matter. What I scan, this is exactly the same. Okay, something else, very good, that's interesting. Something else interesting. Yeah. Okay, so we've got some of the different lengths, and all coming out the same length. Okay, that's good. Compare your scan to my scan. What do you see? Is there anything interesting comparing what you're scanning to what I'm scanning? Yep. Okay, so for you, the middle short segment's different. I'm getting some different short segments. Okay, that's true. There's something about this that's... You've got ending the same? Okay, so that's interesting too. We're scanning the same page, and we're getting some of the ends to show up the same. In fact, when the ends show up the same, the middle is probably the same too. I mean, I haven't verified that, but I'm pretty sure. What else? There's kind of one other big key as you compare yours to mine that I want you to notice. This would be full credit for class participation if you can pull it off. Okay, say it again. Something's different? Right, so that's full credit. So this number right here is the same for me every time I do it, and yours is the same for you every time you do it, but mine is different than yours. What's that first number? What is it? It's the serial number of the scanner. And so this was something that made people a little uncomfortable too, right? They know, wherever I take my scanner, even if I'm plugged into someone else's computer, they know it's me who's scanning this. It was a different time. We were nervous about this kind of stuff. And so one of the other operations that was also variously called neutering or declawing was another place that you could cut the cat on the inside that would just zero out that part. So you could still scan, it would still work with their whole infrastructure, but they would have no idea who sent the scan in because it would just send all zeros for that. It would be kind of interesting. Okay, so that's what you notice if you're an electrical engineering student. What if you're a cryptographer, someone who studies, encoding? When you look at this page that's just been, printed out up here on the screen, what do you notice then? I mean, what do you see when you see these scans? Yeah. Yeah, you see a challenge. If you're a cryptographer, you see a challenge. Yeah, I wonder how they're encoding this. Okay, and you've pointed out that, hey, they've even done something really nice for us. They have delimited the encryption. Look, there's 3 different fields here, and they've marked them for us. Wasn't that nice? That was so nice. And it turns out then that in fact, people figured out how to decode this thing. And so not too long after it became popular, in the sense that a fair number of people had these, you could totally make good use of these without doing anything with the company Digital Convergence. They dried up and blew away. And they ended up selling, their excess hardware, to someone who was I think Electromaven was the name of the company that I bought these from. But someone just bought, all these scanners like on auction. So where could I buy a scanner? Oh yeah, so someone mentioned something about Donald Trump's family name actually being something like Drumpf. And that's what it was. I guess they changed it. I don't know how long ago they changed it. That's what that old was. Okay, so let's do a purchase at CueCat. And you can find them. You can buy them on eBay. The place I got it was a place called Electromaven or something. Anyway, you can buy boxes of 100. You can buy them for, here we go. Barcode Scanner and 100 for $500. So that's where maybe that's the same place I bought it. I don't know. Okay, so before it turns out the encryption in here is not very good encryption. And so it was cracked pretty quickly and we could do that. Okay, so when I first bought these, I thought, this is what I wanted to use them for. I wanted to put a scanner in your hand so that we could scan and see what it's like to integrate a scanner into an application using VBA. And I was going to unscrew them all, and I was going to neuter every single one of these cats. There's 100 of them. But then I thought, that was a lot of work. I didn't really want to do that. And plus, I found where someone had published the algorithm to decrypt. And I have given that to you in that scanner stuff zip file. So if we open up CueCat.xlsm, I've extracted it, and then I'm opening it. Then this first table on sheet 1 will actually decode that scanner. So I'm just going to put my active cell on A3, and then I'm going to scan this. And you'll notice that when you have a successful scan, that the number that shows up will match the number that is there on the paper. Anyone got that long barcode to scan yet and decode? It's probably a shameless advertisement. Dr. Allen is my favorite professor. It's true. I mean, I wrote the code, and so that actually is true. I am my favorite professor. I like me more than any other professor. Okay, so if we'll look at this, then what we have is there's a function built into this workbook. It's a user-defined function called CueCat. You pass it the barcode, whatever value the barcode is, and then the field you want, field 1, 2, or 3. And so you can see that. Yeah, so the initial scan that it downloaded for you was done with some different identifier, but then the rest of these scans have that same identifier. It seems like Digital Convergence was prepared to have a lot of these out there because they have how many zeros they have on the front of this. They had room for growth here. That second column is the type of barcode. There are several different types of barcodes that it can read. And then you have the part that is actually then decrypted. Okay. So kind of the first thing here is that if you're going to integrate like a barcode scanner or a magnetic strip reader like this, it's really just a matter of setting up your program so that it can accept that input as if it's coming in from a keyboard. And so let me go ahead and let's see. I think I have my JP Morgan corporate credit card here. Let's go ahead and unfortunately I don't have enough ports to keep these all plugged in. That's my mouse. That would be fine. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a really good deal on these barcode scanners. I'd let you have these to play with as well. I think I paid $30 for this one, and I just couldn't bring myself to buy 100 of them so you could all play with them. But maybe it was 15. But you should just be able to read this, and this is going to come in unencoded. Let's see. There we go. So that's what it's reading off of this card. And what's there? What is there? Looks like sometimes it reads one thing and sometimes it reads. Looks like it's the direction. Yeah, it totally is. Huh? I always thought it would read the same both one way and the other. The card's expired, by the way, so I don't think you really need to take that number down. Do anything with it. But that's the information that's on the card. And so, you know, if you had, in fact, let's see, what do I have? Also, I have here. You know, if you were doing something like with a club or something, and you needed to have some kind of application that would let you, you know, swipe in, you know, students and know who they are, then I guess is that my BOE ID? That's my BOE ID. Yeah. You want to try yours? Yeah, it looks like, oh, sorry about that. Looks like that's just your ID number. So, you know, it turns out reading a magnetic strip is the same thing. It's just a bunch of information that's encoded on that strip, the same thing as using a barcode scanner. Questions there? You're all too young to remember this. Oh, that's another thing to scan. We'll scan one more thing here. Then we'll tell the story from the Wayback Machine. So it seems like your temple recommend has a barcode on it as well. I wonder if I can read that on my temple recommend. Uh-oh, it's been kind of stuck. That's kind of a small barcode. I'm not sure I'll be able to get it. I'm not sure the cat can read this. Cat's not happy with the barcode. But if we could, you could read that number, and it's just the number of the recommend. You're too young to remember this, but back in the 1980s, when you took your temple recommend to the temple for the first time, they would put it into a sleeve magnetic strip on it. Did any of you ever see this? And they would encode it. I'm serious about this. You would go through an endowment session. You would pass the veil, and you would swipe it through the barcode scanner. It was kind of unusual. That's the way it was. And then at some point, someone said, you know, that's kind of unusual. We should cut that out. And they stopped. And about 6 months after that, I was at the ODI, and there was this white barcode scanner that looked ever so familiar. It was like 15 bucks, and I was a student. 15 bucks I didn't understand. I thought, oh, I've got to have this. I kept it with me until Hurricane Katrina, and it got destroyed in Hurricane Katrina. Got sent back to its maker, apparently. There. But I had one of the barcode scanners from the Provo Temple. What's that? That's right. St. Peter needed it up there, you know, to be able to. Do you have your recommend? Okay. All right. What was I going to talk about? Okay, so back to the scanner. So what is it about this scanner, the way it is, that's kind of somewhat deficient in terms of usability? I mean, just as you're scanning, what would you really like this scanner to have or do that it doesn't do? Okay, well, first of all, I don't really want to have to scan across it. I'd rather, you know, be able to point the trigger at it, pull the trigger, and just have it read it. And in fact, you can buy a decent scanner like that for about 60 bucks, you know. So it's not a lot of money to get into this in a pretty decent way. But think about it. You're trying to use this. You know, what else we got here? We got something like we got potato skins. Here I am trying to check out the potato skins. What's the problem? What's that? Okay, that's not a big deal. Yeah? Oh, yeah, you know, so it could be something, oh, yeah, like this, the vitamin water. I mean, the bottle's all kind of sideways, and, I mean, it's, you know, it's, like, dipped in, and that's going to make it a little harder to read. We're getting there. Scan some more with yourself, and I want you to scan, and I want you to come up with this. You know, it's full credit for class participation. If you can find out the main defect, you'll notice it if you're working with it. Oh yeah, it does kind of smear the barcode, but usually barcode's going to get scanned once in a while and probably okay to get smeared. Doesn't change whatever direction you read. So in fact, you're right. That's not a problem though, is that it doesn't matter which direction I read it, it reads the whole thing and then the little cat on the inside starts typing once he's read the whole code. And so whether you read it backwards or forwards doesn't matter. Think about the process that you're actually going through. It doesn't read every time, but what's the big deal about it not reading every time? Barcode would be harder, yeah. So this is kind of tough to get, but that's still not what I'm getting at. Yes. And so I'm focusing here, and how do I know if that printed out? I got to look down there. Did that print? And if I've got a whole long list, it's tough for me to know did I actually scan that one or not, especially if I have one that's kind of hard to get to. Oh, there, it finally scanned. Okay, so that's the problem. So what is it missing? A beep. Wouldn't it be so great if this thing would beep? Yes, it would be. So let's see how to make this thing beep. There's no beep. There's no hardware that will beep on the inside of this. Okay? So how are we going to make it beep? Yeah, was that software? Yeah, if only we could do something. If only there was some kind of programming language that would, oh wait, there is. Let's take a look again at our scanner stuff, and we've got here meow.wav. It's a wave file. Oh, and here I am on my computer. I'm going through VGA, so this is not going to come over the speakers. Maybe you'll be able to hear it just from my computer. How do you want to play this? I don't know. Media player? Okay, so you're not hearing me yet, but apparently, oh, there we go. Groove music. I don't know. Okay, so it is a cat after all, and so it would be good if we could have it make that sound when it scans. Now here's the problem. That sounds like it's a really short amount of time. I mean, how long is it? Is it a second? Is it fully a second? Here's the problem. If we have to wait for that sound to play before the code moves on, that's too long. I mean, it seems cute and whatever, but I don't want to have to. What I really want is for as soon as it's recognized that it has a scan, I want it to start playing the sound, and I want the numbers to keep coming in. Oh, this is a problem because VBA, by its nature, is just going to be sequential. I tell it to do something, it's going to wait until that's done before it moves on to do the next thing. Now, we've seen an exception to this. What was the exception? We did something in class where we had to specifically tell it, oh no, slow down VBA, you wait until something else is finished. Yeah, so wait for load. When we were using Internet Explorer, we were communicating with this other program, telling it to do something, and then we kind of had to, VBA still finished the instruction, it then had to wait. We had to tell it to wait. So, what I'm going to introduce you now to be able to make this meow happen asynchronously, kind of happen at the same time as whatever else I'm doing, is we're going to get introduced to a dynamic link library. Have you heard of dynamic link libraries before? DLLs before? We don't hear about them so much as we used to. Here's the idea. When we create a sub-procedure in VBA, we write the sub-procedure. It's here in our code. That's what we refer to as and if we had a whole module full of these sub-procedures, that's what we call a static link library. It is a list of procedures that I can link onto. I have to link to them before I start to run the program. In Windows, there are hundreds upon hundreds of these procedures that are available for other programs to call. They link to them dynamically. So in other words, after my program is started running, I can just link onto this library that's already there. I don't have to do it before I compile my program. And so that's what a dynamic link library is. So I'm going to open up my VBA notes here, and it's going to have a couple lines of code that'll help me get going. This first one right here is how I make a declaration to a procedure in a dynamic link library. And so I'm going to come back to my VBA code. I'm not going to do this inside the CueCat module. I'm going to insert a new module. And I think I can do this after option explicit. Yep. So I say private declare PTR safe. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. And then I give it this name. Let's see. I think this is the name of the procedure inside the library called the Windows Multimedia Library, WinMM. I give it an alias. And then it has to know, let me close things here so you can't quite see it all, darn it. I'm going to break this onto 2 lines so we can get it all up here. Maybe I'll do it after the alias, or just before the alias. Okay, so this is one statement. And it says I've got to send it 2 pieces of information. I've got to send it the file name that I want to play, and then I have to tell it, do I want it to play it synchronously or asynchronously? In other words, do I want to wait until it's done playing, or do I want it just to go ahead and play? So now I'm just going to create a sub-procedure here inside of VBA called play sound. And it's going to call this procedure in the dynamic link library. So I give it the name of the alias. Then I pass it the next argument, the file name. File name is at this workbook dot path concatenated with backslash, or you could put application.path separator, and then meow dot WAV. Thank you. Then I'm going to pass it a 1 or 0 to tell it whether it's going to be synchronous or asynchronous. I don't remember which one's which. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here, and I'm just going to go ahead and try to run that and see what happens. Okay, so it turns out that it's not the alias is the name of the procedure inside the library. This is the name that I refer to it by. So API sound play sound. That's how I have to call this function. I then pass it. Oh, I just realized I don't think the recording is going to hear this play. Oh well, you'll have to believe me, people in the recorder. So when I play this, then it should play the sound. Is it now waiting for the sound to finish playing before it moves on, or is it starting it to play and running along? You can see that the yellow line hits my breakpoint before it's done playing. And so that's what I'm really looking for. I can see the other behavior if I turn this to a 0 and play it. It plays the sound, and then when it's done, it moves on. You see the difference in the behavior? So I have control over whether I want to wait for the sound to stop or let it play in the background while my code continues on. And so I definitely want this to be a 1 here. So whenever I call play sound, it's going to play the meow, and then even before it's done running, code will continue on, and that's what I want. Okay. That was funny. One day we were in class doing this, and all of a sudden someone's scanner made the sound of a cougar. I mean, someone went and found a different file and was playing a different file sound. You know, someone was going to go do that. Yeah. I'm sure that scanner felt better that day than ever before. You know, it's been sitting in the box now for years, just hoping for that day to come back. Okay. Folks, let's see if you can notice something else a little bit interesting, but this is also something else that we'll be able to take advantage of. I'm going to do a scan back here on my page. Oh, if I can find my scanner. I'm going to scan, I'll just scan one of these barcodes here. Do you see what's happening on the right hand of the screen when I scan? Well, I wonder why that's coming back as zeros? It's like my thing is not decoding. Oh, it's because I'm in break mode. So the code that's supposed to run to decode that can't run because I was in break mode. Let me go back. There we go. Watch what happens on the right-hand side of the screen. I scan, and that bar comes up. I scan, and that bar goes away. What's going on? Any idea? What is that bar that keeps showing up and disappearing? It's my selection pane. Watch this. No mouse and no cat involved. Oh, my kids were so funny when I bought these. They were really young. You know, here's a cat, you know, sitting next to the mouse on the computer. They were like doing these commercials. Does your mouse get bored at home alone all day? Get the cat so he has something to play with. Buy the cat today. Okay, look, no cat involved. I'm going to press Alt F10. Watch what whoops. I'm going to press Alt F10. Alt F10 is the keystroke that brings up that selection pane. So what is the little cat inside the cat doing before he starts typing the barcode? The very first thing he does is he presses Alt F10. The software that Digital Convergence wrote listened for Alt F10. And so whenever you did a scan, wherever you were, this software they installed said, someone just pressed Alt F10, open up our thing and get ready to receive the barcode that's coming in. It would send that to their web server, bring back the information. And so we can take advantage of the fact that this sends an Alt F10 the first time it scans. So if there was some way for us to be able to say, hey, when that cat presses Alt F10, first thing we want to do is play this sound. It turns out we can do that. And so I'm going to come back to my VBA notes, and I'm going to look at this statement right here. Application on key. I'm going to copy this line, and I'm going to bring it to my immediate, I'm not going to put it in the procedure, I'm going to put it in my immediate window just so I can play with it for a minute. So I'm going to paste this in here. What this says is, application, what's for full credit for class participation, what is application referring to? Application, yes. Yeah, it's the whole of Excel. So this is going to be some method of Excel. There's this method called onKey. It takes two arguments. One is the particular keystroke. Let's just do this. I'm just going to put lowercase e, the most commonly typed letter. I'm saying, listen, application, anytime someone presses E, play this macro, run this macro. This is a string that has the name of the macro we want it to play. So that's play sound. And so now, just by typing E, when I'm on Excel, it should invoke this functionality once I execute this method. So I've just run it. It didn't play the sound because all application.onKey does is it says, hey, let's remember now, anytime someone presses E, it'll play the sound. Now, if I press E out here, it won't do it because it has to be when I'm actually on an Excel workbook. But if I come over here and I think, you know what, I want to type an E here, I got to get rid of this breakpoint. I want to type E here. It doesn't type E. What does it do? It runs that. I told it. E does something different. Oh, here we are, only 11 days past April Fool's Day. If only we had known this a little bit earlier. Well, how do I get my key? How do I get my E key back? Here's one of the things you'll see kind of written about how to do this online. It's totally wrong. You just pass a zero-length string as the argument for the procedure. That's sort of right. I've just run that now. I've changed what the E key does. Now I type E, and E doesn't do anything. Importantly, it doesn't even type an E. So E is still bound to do something different. It just doesn't do very much. Yeah? Oh, wait till we get to that. Let's get there in just a second. So if I really want to turn this off, I've got to pass no argument here at all. Now my E is back to normal. Now here's kind of the sad thing, is that once I start editing the cell, let me go ahead and turn the E back on. If I type the T and the H and then the E. The E goes in OK here. If I type the E by itself, I get meow. So this only works when I'm kind of on the surface of Excel. Once I've started editing a cell, all that on-key stuff is gone. So it's just when I'm kind of at the top level. And so to answer your question, could I just make it so it does THE? And the answer is no. It really is kind of one keystroke that's going to trigger it. And by the time I've done that, I'm beyond where it's listening. And so I can't make it respond to THE. And so so the answer is no. All right, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to make it respond to, what was it, Alt F10. Well, here's, in VBA lingo, here's how you say Alt F10. There are some keys you can't just type. F10 is one of them. And so, here, let's do this. Let's put an Alt E by putting a %E. Percent's a particular character, so now that will get triggered when I press Alt E. Percent means Alt. So Alt E, I think, Alt E. Oh, maybe not. Let's go to Alt F10, make sure that works. And the F10 does, not the E. The E shouldn't. F10. Oh, maybe Alt E is already triggered, maybe so. Go back to my code. %F10. That looks exactly right to me. I'm going to copy it. Maybe I had a space in there. Okay. So now, when I press Alt F10, it plays the cat. So now, since the cat presses Alt F10 at the first, when I do a scan, then it says meow, and then while the keystrokes are coming in, it's meowing during that same time. So if I wanted this workbook to always kind of take over Alt F10 and convert that to meow, where do I put this code? So talk to me, which module do I put it in? Yeah, in the workbook module. So let me do view my project explorer. And I'm going to come to this workbook, and my event is going to be, the object will be workbook, my event will be open, and I'll say play sound. So now when this workbook opens, it's going to say, all right, when I get an Alt F10, play the sound. I darn well better do this when the workbook closes, turn it off. So close. Before close, then we'll do the same thing, but we will provide no argument for the second argument. So that says send Alt F10 back to what it used to do. Questions here? So really this is kind of handy. In fact, the real reason I decided not to cut these is I thought, knowing the actual scanner that's making the scan could really be helpful. I'm not sure why it would be helpful, but at some point that could be helpful for something. All right, so we've taken this, very inexpensive, somewhat deficient scanner and made it somewhat less deficient. I mean, it's still kind of deficient. You got to scan it, whatever. But at least now you can hear when you have a good scan. Questions on this? One of the things you will no doubt want to do when you start working with barcodes is you'll need some way to be able to print barcodes onto stuff. And so I've given you some information on that as well. So here in the scanner stuff folder, there's this link called barcodefont.txt. All that is, it's just a URL. And so if I follow that URL, it will take you to this place called idautomation.com, and here's a free code 39 barcode download font. Folks, here's how it works. You download and install that font, you choose that font, and when you type, this is how it looks. That's just what those characters look like. They look like a barcode. So anything that you could print with this font, and it would print out as a barcode. That is exactly how I made these barcodes. That font is free. The license doesn't allow me to deliver that font to you. They want to be the ones to deliver the font, but they've created this font and they give it away for free. So you download that font and you've got a font that can print barcodes. Matthew? So the question is, do barcodes have a way that they can tell when they're upside down? Because you'd think, gosh, if this thing's backwards, that's a problem. And the answer is yes. In fact, you'll notice that if you read the instructions here, at some point they'll tell you about it. But you'll notice looking at this font right here, whenever you write a barcode, you've got to give the signal that says this is the barcode starting. And it's the asterisk. In this font, it's the asterisk character. So you put the asterisk in here, and you start it and you end it with an asterisk. And so it can tell by the direction that the asterisk was read, am I starting at the end or starting at the beginning? So it can tell that, and the reason it can tell it is because you have a termination, you have an initialization and a termination character that lets it know which direction it's being read. So part of that barcode isn't really a number at all, it's just telling it which direction I'm reading it from. So you would have to put an asterisk at the beginning and the end of everything that you're printing out as a barcode. Oh, really? So the comment is that he thinks that there's somewhere in Microsoft Word that has this whole barcode thing built in. That may very well be. So, yeah, but I'm not sure. I've never dealt with it. Oh, it might actually put the little barcode that the post office wants for it. That may be the extent of it. I'm not sure that this cat, in fact, I am certain that this cat could not read that particular postal mailing label because that postal one isn't based on the widths of the bars, it's based on the heights of the bars. It's a different kind of scan. This one wouldn't be able to scan it. Usually about now I see some students going, I wonder if I can read that scan off the screen. They're trying it on the screen. The answer is no. You know, it's relying on the light reflecting back from the light that it's putting, and you won't be able to read it off the screen like you could with your barcode scanner on your phone. Okay, folks, only one more thing I want to cover here today, and that is a site that if you start dealing with barcodes, that might be interesting. It is called upcdatabase.com. And so, if I scroll down here, let's see, somewhere over here, there's some advertisements. Maybe lookup is what I want. Actions lookup. Okay, so here's actions lookup. So if I've decoded something, let me take my Pringles scan. I lost my Pringles scan. You come back here to my CueCat, and I would like to scan my Pringles. What is this? This is, I can't even see the size of it. Oh, it's a 2.36 ounce can of Pringles. So I'm going to come over here to column A, and I'm going to try to scan this barcode. Okay, so here's the code that it scanned. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back to my UPC database, and I'm going to paste that value in right here. And so this online database is going to just give me the information from the UPC record. I gave it the number, and it tells me it's a 2.36 ounce can of Pringles, made in the United States, or at least issued in the United States, and was the number itself was last modified March 2013. I'm glad that this can of chips wasn't last modified in March of 2013 because they'd be really old. But that's when the number was made. And so if you're dealing with UPC things, there's an online database that's just there and ready for you to use. And look at the URL. Isn't that a great URL? The URL includes the barcode, which means you could interact with this using nothing more than the web query wizard. You can just format that URL, send it off, get the information back. I was absolutely shocked when I was, I found this database. I was like, oh, this is a really great database. Look what it has right down here. It actually has a CueCat decoder built into the website. I'll scan it here if I can. It's decoded that there, and I can just click right here to go look it up from there. And so the UPC database website, is kind of free for incidental use. If you're going to make an application that uses it, they want you to buy a license. And anyway, that's there, and they maintain it, and they keep that information. I don't know what the licenses cost, but there you go. Questions here in the back? So the question is, could we take something that we just bought at Walmart and look it up here at the UPC database and just see it? The answer is yes, but we're not going to get details that only Walmart knows, like the price, or anything else about it. All we'll know is what's registered with the number. So presumably, if I'm selling potato chips, I've got to register the number for this product, and I probably have to somewhere I say, you know what, I want to buy a UPC code. That probably costs a couple of bucks, and then someplace somewhere will issue that number to me, and I've got to give them some information about it. What's it going to be for? What's the size? And all this information here. So it's not a whole lot of information that you have here, but it's some information. The first place that I started playing with barcode scanners was when my wife said, it'd be really great if we could have some kind of system for all of the books we have. She's got thousands of books. And she wants to have some kind of little library application. And so that was actually where I got my first CueCat. I picked it up at a thrift store. After doing some reading about it, I realized I paid like $3 for something that was originally free. I felt kind of cheated for that. But so we just started scanning the barcode on the back of the book and then sending off a request to Amazon.com to get all the information about the book to build out the database, so no one had to actually type in the names of the books that she had. So that was really pretty nice as well. So there are lots of applications for something like this, and it's a handy way just to be able to integrate a barcode right into your application. And again, anything we do with a barcode, we can do with a magnetic strip reader. If you decide you want to buy these, make sure that you're getting a keyboard wedge. It's called a keyboard wedge because it used to be that you would actually, there's only one keyboard port on your computer. And so if you plugged the scanner into the keyboard, into the port, where would you put your keyboard? And the answer is, you would plug into the back of the scanner, and it would actually wedge itself in between the computer and the keyboard, and it would take the keystrokes through it. But now that we're on USB and we've got USB keyboards, it's not really a wedge. It doesn't really go between the computer and the keyboard, but it's still kind of called a keyboard wedge. So if you buy one, make sure that you're getting the kind that you want. Otherwise, you'll spend some money on a scanner and then realize, oh, I've got to install a driver for it that I may or may not have. We do the same thing with QR codes. So absolutely, if you had a scanner that would read a QR code, I'm sure they have scanners, QR code scanners, that would be a keyboard wedge. Let's just take a look. QR scanner wedge. Keyboard wedge, QR code scanner. So it's a little more pricey than the CueCat. Looks like you can buy one for $300. So, but yeah, it would then scan a QR code and it would just type whatever that QR code is, right as if it was coming in on the computer. Could you find one for less? Undoubtedly, but that was just the first one that came up. These are nicer too, like battery operated or something, I don't know. Other questions?